Hey folks, excited to dive into this one today. We're going to be walking through how to hire the right CMO for your company. So I'm going to be walking you through all the different lenses that I look at when kind of calibrating in what is the right type of CMO. This is a really difficult hire. There's a lot of different types of CMOs out there, and I'm walking through some best practices I use when I'm helping other companies choose their CMO. All right, let's dive into this.
SaaS CMO Pro.
All right, Bill Macaitis here. My background, bring over 20 years of online experience, most recently SVP of Marketing at Salesforce, CMO at Zendesk, and CMO CRO at Slack. I currently serve as an advisor, board member for a lot of different SaaS startups. And a very common issue that we'll see is a CEO of a SaaS startup, AI startup, whatever it is, are looking to hire their first CMO. Or maybe they're looking, they had someone, it didn't work out for whatever reason. They want to make sure that they get this hire right. And it is a difficult hire. First, anytime I do this stuff, I put on my empathy cap, and I get it, right? Like a lot of founders, especially in SaaS, especially in AI, tend to come from more of a technical background. And marketing, sales, some of the go-to-market functions are just a little new to them. Nothing wrong with that. I know if I was CEO tomorrow and I'm hiring my CTO, I'm not going to have a lot of great architecture questions to ask that person. Probably going to ask a lot of fit questions.
Check it out.
But, eventually marketers and salespeople, they're good at talking. So you kind of want to make sure, do they actually know their stuff or not? And so I'm going to kind of walk you through what are the different lenses I look at to make sure that you're hiring the right type of CMO that's going to be successful for you. So the first lens that I look at is, what type of organization are you? What is your go-to-market motion? Are you a sales-led growth? In other words, SLG, or are you maybe product-led growth? So sales-led growth is kind of like the historical default model. If you are selling into mid-market enterprise and you have a motion where you get leads or you're doing outbound, they all go to salespeople, all those salespeople close them, I would say you are an SLG motion, sales-led growth motion. On the other hand, if you are part of a company, maybe you're targeting SMBs, and you could be going after mid-market enterprise, but you have a different motion, right? When people come in, they get right into the product, maybe you have a freemium plan, you have things like, product qualified leads, PQLs. You are more of a PLG type company. And the marketers that are going to be successful in each one of those are radically different. The type of person you're going to go after, if you're an SLG company, historically, you're going to look for someone that has come and worked for, large SaaS software that's sold to large enterprises in the past. They've worked really closely with the sales team. They're good at messaging. They're good at pricing and packaging. They've, run a lot of events before. They're good at comms, analyst relations. These are the types of things that if you're running a sales-led growth motion, that type of CMO is going to be in a much better position to succeed. Conversely, if you are more of a PLG type company and your go-to-market motion is a little different, you're going to want someone a little bit different. In my experience, I found people from two areas that tend to be really successful here. One is people with a historical experience in B2B SaaS, but they're targeting SMBs. The motions you use when you're going after SMBs are a lot of times very different, just because you can't scale. When you're selling to SMBs, you have to find motions that will scale to all those SMBs. You can't use these more high touch, expensive motions because there's just too many of them, right? Your ASPs are too small there. You also just want to find people, hey, have you done PLG before? Do you even know what PLG is? I would say that was one of the most popular interview questions that I would ask, and I would tell my, companies I was advising to ask, is just go, hey, what is your point of view on PLG, right? If they don't even know the answer to that question, or they don't even know what PLG is, then they're probably not a good fit if you're embarking on that motion there. And by the way, I am doing a separate video on the top 7 interview questions I ask for CMOs when I'm interviewing a CMO on behalf of a company that I'm advising or that I'm a board member of. All right, the second big lens that I use is, are they a creative or are they a quant? And a lot of this is going to come from your own particular beliefs on what you think is more important, right? Are you the type of person, CEO, that you want a very rigid, data-driven marketing org? You want to know CAC payback. You want to know every single metric out there. You want your CMO to know those metrics. You want your CMO to be actively tracking every single thing. They want to be very quant-oriented. That is a very different profile than a CMO that has a creative background, that maybe they're the most amazing storyteller. Maybe, they just see the world differently. They bring to life, your ad campaigns. They're just artistic. They speak differently. It's a very different profile, right? A quant versus a creative. And this is a good point to say too. Like, you're not going to get a profile or candidate that's great at everything. You're not going to get someone that's awesome at PLG and awesome at SLG. You're not going to get someone that's awesome at being a quant and awesome at being this incredible, creative genius.
God damn it, Gump! You're a goddamn genius.
So that's the second one. You have to think about these things, right? Like, which one do you want? Which one's more important for you? When you go out and you give a headhunter or an internal recruiter, and you just give them a very generic spec, like, hey, we want a CMO, that's going to be very difficult for them because they're going to be going after basically the entire, candidate pool of potential CMOs, and you'll waste a lot of time, right? Like a CMO interview process in a C-suite is a huge time suck for you as a CEO or founder. It's also a time suck for everybody that's on that panel. It's a time suck for that recruiting team, the headhunters that you're using. If you can really narrow in, you're going to be in a much better position to succeed there. All right, the third lens that I look at is, hey, from a go-to-market perspective, is this person using a modern playbook or kind of like a dusty 30-year-old playbook? And to me, that was always something that drove myself, as a CMO, as someone that loved tech, is that I always just wanted to learn the latest, best way to grow, the most capital efficient way to grow. And I think that's important, right? Like, especially when you're thinking about these type of playbooks, a lot of times what I'll see with founders is they will create some of the most amazing products, most amazing SaaS products, most amazing AI products. They'll come out and super innovative, like just a next level, right? It's just a quantum leap forward. But then when they look at their go-to-market or their marketing, for whatever reason, they've embraced this really old, dated playbook. And, they're going to be doing things like sending out press releases. And maybe they just run tons and tons of events. Nothing wrong with events, but again, it's like an older kind of style doing it. Or maybe from a sales perspective, all they're doing is outbound and they're selling top down into these organizations and they're trying to brute force their way in. No one knows about the company. Their CAC payback is not very efficient. Their overall go-to-market is not very efficient. They get a lot of heat from their VCs because it costs so much to grow. And the DNA of the person you're hiring, you're going to see these candidates. I see it all the time when I'm interviewing them. Some of them just, again, they're just doing what worked awesome for them 30 years ago. Sometimes, and again, nothing against these companies, but you'll see someone that comes from Oracle, right? And they've been there for 25 years. They're gonna just use a much different playbook than you will of someone that was part of a really fast growth SaaS startup. They used a couple really innovative techniques. It's just a different playbook, right? And even same thing, even if you're targeting the enterprise, it doesn't mean you have to use these older, dated ways to grow, right? You can be using, advanced ABM type campaigns. You can be using, reverse IP, targeted content. You can be using very targeted ad campaigns that only those people will see there. Using content marketing, bottoms up, PLG motions that help you get into the enterprise, right? And all these more modern ways are going to allow you to grow much more efficiently, even if you're just going after the enterprise, right? So I do think it's important for you to recognize that lens. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased on which of these lenses you should go for, the modern or the kind of traditional dusty, playbook. But I'll just say, just recognize that, right? Ask those questions, get a feel for the type of candidate that you're bringing in. A lot of times what happens too is when you're building out your C-suite as a founder or CEO, and let's say you're doing well, a lot of times you want to go after someone that has 20 or 30 years experience. And again, nothing wrong with that. They are going to bring a lot of experience, but just make sure that, the company you're bringing them from, or just their personal philosophy, right? I would argue that they are staying up to date on all the different go-to-market models out there, that they know the different ways to grow marketing. They know how to measure brand. They know what PLG is. They know SEO. They just a modern marketer. They know how to leverage the latest AI tools. They can leverage, 3 different AI tools for growth, right? That they want to bring in their team. You're just going to you're going to grow much more efficiently. And also what you have to realize too is a lot of these leaders, when they come in, they're going to hire people that are similar to them. Similar to, CMO comes in, he made may say, I'm going to hire just people in my network or people that I know, people that I've worked with previously. So you're bringing all that baggage in. Or conversely, CMO you bring in, she's going to say like, hey, maybe she's the more modern marketer and she's going to bring in all the people that she knows. And of course, similar beliefs, views, systems they're going to bring in, and she's going to have a much more modern marketing team overall. That's kind of the third lens that I look at. The last lens that I look at here is, are they a great leader?
Sons of Scotland, I am William Wallace.
And I think this is a lot of times underrated. A lot of times when we're doing these domain expertise type interviews, we're really heavily focusing on, do they know marketing? Do they know pricing and packaging? Do they know how to target the enterprise? Do they know PLG? Really important. Absolutely important. But I think at the same time too, if you're growing fast. When I was at Slack, we were growing really fast. When I was at Zendesk, we were growing really fast. When I was at Salesforce, we were growing really fast. And what a lot of times will happen is these C-suite positions that you're hiring, they're quickly going to have a pretty large team underneath them. And at some point, it becomes less and less about their specific domain expertise in these areas. Still very important, but in a lot of ways, it's like, are they a good leader? Are they a good manager? Can they set clear priorities? Can they stack rank those priorities? Can they say what's below the priorities and we're not going to focus on that? Do they have one-on-ones with all of their direct staff, right? Weekly one-on-ones. Do they give constructive feedback? Are they a uniter, right? Do they give a lot of energy to the team? Do people follow this person from job to job because they love that person so much? Being a leader is really, really important. And a lot of times, like, you will end up during these CMO searches, you may default to someone that maybe just knows one thing pretty good. They might be a horrible leader. Or a lot of times for these CMO roles, you might be going, hey, we can either go after existing CMO, or maybe we go after a VP, or maybe a senior director, right? That's ready to make that leap up to a CMO. Maybe that person was great at those skills, but again, they're a great IC, individual contributor. Are they a great leader? Are they a great manager? So I definitely say, like, ask those questions too. Make sure you have it. The final piece of advice, just wrapping this up, is to think about, again, look at all these different lenses. Sales-led growth versus PLG, SMB, small, medium business versus enterprise, creative, Quant, are they a great leader? What type of playbook do they embrace? And kind of narrow in. What I really recommend by that is like, choose what are the one or two things you need more than anything. Like, for you to be successful as a company, what are the one or two things you absolutely need this person to have? I say that because a lot of times these CMO recs, I'll see them, again, I'll work with a lot of companies as a board advisor, or a lot of times on the board, and they're searching for this role. And I'll be like, well, let me see the, CMO job rec. And it'll be like, it's everything. All those lenses I said, every single lens is in there. And the problem with that is that you just, these are unicorns. They don't exist, right? Everyone's going to have some strengths. Everyone's going to have some weaknesses. A good question, by the way. And just kind of know that and kind of realize that, hey, like, us as a company at this particular stage of growth, we really need to have someone that can nail these two things, whatever it is, and hire towards those strengths. Don't hire to someone that's pretty good at all of them. I would argue hire to the strengths of what you need. The thing with the CMO too is you can always help cover that up with their subordinates underneath them, with their lieutenants, right? You could say, like, maybe you want someone, you want to bring in a rigor of data driven, right? And you want to bring in someone that knows every single SaaS metric, especially in the marketing side, is very rigorous there. But you know that, like, hey, they're not a good storyteller. They have no creative. Well, you know what? Maybe you're a director of product marketing. You go out and you find the best storyteller. Or maybe you have an incredible director of creative that you bring in to help complement them, right? Those things are important. Hopefully this was helpful. Think about all those different types of things. I'd be curious in the comments, what do you look for when you hire a great CMO? What is, like, your number one lens that you look for? And again, excited to be talking with you guys about these topics. Follow me if you'd like to learn a little bit more about all these different efforts of SaaS and the different strategies. Thanks so much.